Game number 2 is live, and we are on heavy rain. Starting to the top of the map, we have BabyKnight. He's currently 0-1 against his opponent after losing on Habitation Station. Starting to the bottom of the map, we have Dimaga, the Zerg player, who was able to edge out that victory. Very aggressive game by him, by the Ukrainian player in game number 1. Let's see what he can do in game number 2 against his opponent. This base, or this map, has no gold expansions, and therefore it's not that much pressure on the BabyKnight to either expand on his own or take down the third of his opponent. So let's see what's going to happen here. I have to admit though that BabyKnight had a pretty horrible start into the last game. If you move out with the Stalker and the Zealot onto the map, you want to, you want to save the Stalker, but if you lose the Stalker, you at least want to trade, and he didn't do that at all. He got surrounded right away, lost both units, didn't do anything with them, and that is a very, very start into the game. It sounds like very little, and like that's nothing really big, like losing a Zealot and Stalker. What's that? Like, that's nothing. But in reality, that's the one task force that you have at the beginning of the game, the few units that you really can rely upon to push out, do some damage, execute some pressure, maybe kill a couple of drones, and with the Stalker you then move back. That's the map presence that you have. Those are the really key units that enable you to not only secure your own base, but at the same time scout what the Zerg player is doing, pressure him a little bit, and just force him to build few units on his own. And if those get surrounded right away, it takes a lot away from your momentum and from your ability to initiate an attack later on, because you just lack the strength. Those units early on, they really, really count, and this is one of the reasons why BabyKnight had such a real bad game, because he couldn't do anything about this third base anymore, and he was trying to take his own third, but it was very difficult for him to pull that off with Dimaga cutting drones at 43 and just going for full-on aggression. If Dimaga would have played a little bit more greedier and just gone to drone up to 60 or 65, maybe 70 drones, it would have been a completely different ball game. Then BabyKnight would have gotten that third base up, but Dimaga instead just cut the drone production. He saturated the bases that he had. He said, alright, listen, with the gold expansion that I have right now, my mineral income is fine. I do not need more drones than that right now, and I can just go full on with lings and roaches against you and then later attack up. In this game, on the other hand, we have BabyKnight once again with a Nexus first, starts things up with a Forge afterwards, and the Gateway, of course, as a follow-up, which means that Dimaga will be very eager to take his third base at 4 minutes or 4:20. We already have him moving in with a drone into position, and that's exactly what he wants to take here. Like, get that third up as fast as possible. Always the main goal when you see your opponent starting with a Forge is to get that third base up. You can't really contest that natural that he has, because the Forge opening gives the Protoss player the safety with a photon cannon against any incoming pushes. There are of course a couple of timings that work quite well if the Protoss player is too greedy, where you can either attack with like roaches, roach hydra, roach ling, but usually if the if the Protoss player scouts what's happening, and that's his biggest like job after he starts with such an opening, he will be able to just enforce with additional cannons and get a few units in there, mainly of course the sentries for the force fields. So usually Zerg players do not contest this too much, instead they just take that third base instead. And with the third base they have the better economy, they have a really good production since you can rely on 3 hatcheries with lava, also of course with the additional queens and the injects. Just a couple of things that you really want to do here. For the Protoss player right now, it's of course also important just choose a tech tree. Usually it's a Stargate opening, that's at least the most common one these days. We saw that today in the Code 8 groups that I was casting just a few hours ago, that most of the Protoss players in the matchup went for Stargate opening. You can of course also start things off with a Robo. That's usually the case when you want to go either for an Immortal push, or we sometimes still see the old school 2 Colossi push that we had at the beginnings of Heart of the Swarm that can be very, very powerful against Zerg players, especially when they are a little bit too greedy. So in this scenario so far we have once again the +1 attack upgrade for BabyKnight, which usually indicates that you either go into a Colossi attack, but most players will start a little bit later, or that you want to play with an aggressive gateway opening. The thing is we only have 2 gateways so far, but there are gateways number 3, 4 and 5. So gateway aggression. That's why we see this +1 attack upgrade. And that is something that of course Dimaga saw also. Like, he sees already that Forge is spinning, and that Forge is spinning fast. So something is happening here. And what exactly that is of course for Dimaga to guess, but usually when you see that, the chance of the Protoss player trying to be a bit aggressive is pretty high. There's already a pylon being placed down here, and Dimaga didn't see that. It was just outside of vision. So he needs to come up with at least a few units, and he has 26 Zerglings building right now. This is also him trying to be a little bit more aggressive, but at the same time it's a reaction to what he scouted. It's basically both. He wants to be active on the map with the speed upgrade that he's just researching. He's also going into the hatch upgrade into lair, but we have him with roaches, we have him with the Zerglings, we have him scouting the map, trying to find out what's happening here, and he sees that pylon. That warp in pylon has to go. If that pylon is gone, there won't be any additional warp ins for the Protoss player anymore. He has to move back though, because suddenly there are a lot of Zealots and they have +1, and Zealots with +1 2 hit a Zergling. Without that attack upgrade they need 3 hits, so it's much more difficult for them to pull that off. Dimaga at 85 supply, he's really getting the numbers now, and he has to rely upon them. He needs to play the numbers game against his opponent, because it's going to take him quite a long time to research an armor upgrade, and that's way too much. BabyKnight with an interesting follow-up on the other hand. He goes straight into Dark Shrine, and that's not only awesome for him because of the Dark Templars and maybe the lack of detection of Dimaga, but Archons against this composition are pretty epic as well. Here we go, Dimaga moving in on creep right now, trying to get those surrounds off. BabyKnights with the micro against the Zerglings. Here comes the speed upgrade on the other hand, and that's definitely not enough Zealots to really stop Dimaga. The Zerg player stopped droning at 43 Harvesters once again, and that's really working quite well for him. The pylon's already been taken down, and Dimaga with such an aggressive opening against what we see from BabyKnight here, and the Protoss player is shut down immediately. I mean, he's trying, you can't blame a girl for trying, but it's just so difficult to make anything happen against Dimaga. Playing a more defensive style and just being greedy in economy would probably work a little bit better. If he goes for a turtle composition, that might be exactly what he needs here, but instead he was trying to push out with those gateways, and he was shut down right away. Now we have BabyKnight in a bit of a, like, he has a problem. Like, what is he gonna do? Of course he wants to get those DTs in, but he doesn't even have map presence. There's no pylon anywhere. He can use this pylon to warp down here and then walk the entire distance towards his opponent's base, or he can just wait for the robotics facility later on, get a warp prism in there, and then try to go for the main base itself. Problematic is that those DTs, I mean, they are yeah, well, they can be really effective. Let's be honest about that. But the lair tech is out. That means that overseers are here. And if you watch the production tab carefully, you saw that he already has one overseer. It's right over here, and it already saw the first DT, so that DT is a goner. And BabyKnight is just being shut down every single step of the way. Dimaga playing an incredible first game here at the Esports Venture Cup. At least in an incredible best of 3. So that will give him a very good start into the group. And I have to say that this was so far a pretty good game by him. Both of those games. Very aggressive, very safe at the same time. Not too greedy, not too aggressive. Didn't overcommit to anything. Just shut down the Protoss player wherever he could. And was very careful in the way that he approached the matchup. Like always having that safety net there. I think the only weakness that he had with this opening would be against Stargates, but that's something that he most likely would have scouted, and then a different reaction would have followed. As is though, BabyKnight didn't go for Stargates. He both times went for gateway aggression, and that didn't work for him at all. BabyKnight right now with an attempted maybe third base. Now he's moving out. He's trying to put the screws on once again. This army on the end, I mean, this is a tiny army. That's 46 army supply against 91. And in case you didn't get an F at school in math, you know that that's usually a bad sign. Like, BabyKnight has half the army supply of his opponent, and that's getting scary. That army, by the way, is trying to break through here, and guess what we don't see? Hell yeah, sentries. That's why we have a recall here immediately. It's time for the sentries to drop the force fields. And there we go. Dropping the force fields immediately, and well, that forge is also going to go down. Force fields on all force fields, and that means no +3 attack upgrade anytime soon. Now a little bit of kiting to just take down one of those Archons maybe, but Dimaga is still controlling that map, and he is currently looking at 3 bases against 2. BabyKnight is trying to take that third base, but that Zergling over there already spotting what's going on. And Dimaga, I just don't see him sitting still and letting BabyKnight take a third. He has Hydralisks. He has the speed upgrade for the Hydralisks. He has a massive supply, and I think it's now time for Dimaga to go for the go for the good old gym mantra: go hard or go home. And Dimaga is gonna go hard. He's gonna go full ham on this base. He's not gonna go home anytime soon. Those rocks are going down, and that will open up the pathway to that third base of his opponent. And, well, BabyKnight, I don't know. He needs to drop the best force fields of his life right now if he wants to survive this. Because Dimaga smells blood in the water, and to be quite honest, I smell it too. Here we go, the time warp already executed. First force field being dropped, but that's not going to be enough. The rest of the force fields, well, they are not too shabby. A couple of the units are definitely being shut out here. That roach force that's trapped inside is taken out right away, but the rest of the army is just going full ham, just barreling down on the Protoss army. BabyKnight is holding for now. Those Immortals, they are giving their best, and they are taking one roach down after another. 14 kills on one of them, but that guy with 18 kills is a master, and he's dead as well. Ha! Immortal, are you kidding me? That guy is dropping faster than... yeah, I can't come up with anything. But GG is being called as BabyKnight is just out of luck and out of units. Dimaga with a 2-0 victory takes a great start, a great lead in this Group B at the Esports Venture Cup.